Hi, guys. Welcome back to Buckle Up, an ultra running conversation with Simon and Brian. Hi, Simon.
Hey, hey Brian, how are your knees?
My knees are good today. Just got done running high school track. Just high school track season just started this week in Colorado, and my knees are doing well. How are you, Simon?
Always good, always good. I'm about to do
Good.
the 4-4-48 Goggin challenge
Oh,
starting tomorrow, so that's gonna be fun. We'll see
oh
how my
wow!
knees
You're
hold
gonna
up.
do four by
Yeah.
four by 48. So 4 miles, 4 hours for 48 hours.
Yeah, so basically 48 miles in 2 days, which when you say
Yeah,
it like that doesn't sound so bad.
yeah, that's interesting. Let's talk about that in a second. But first, I want to introduce you to Kevin Hadfield. Kevin Hadfield's a highly skilled ultra runner. He has an impressive list of achievements, including completing the Tour Des Geants 3 times, Run Rabbit Run, High Five 100, Pinhoti 100, Rio Del Lago 100, Coldwater Rumble 100, Javelina 100, and securing the overall victories at the Grand Mesa 100 miler and 50 kilometer, and many more if you go look at his ultra sign up. Those are the ones I just pulled off. Recently, Kevin finished the Cocodona 250 and his third Run Rabbit Run race in 2023. He resides with his wife, Liesel, in the Roaring Fork Valley of Western Colorado. Welcome, Kevin.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me on.
Kevin, nice meeting you. Actually, I don't know you much, but that running resume is absolutely amazing. My number one race that I want to do someday is Tour Des Geants. The fact that you've done it 3 times is absolutely amazing. For those who don't know that race, I mean, maybe you'd be better at describing it, but it's basically a 200 miler, but in the metric system, so 300 something kilometers in the Alps, in the Valle d'Aosta. And I think the elevation gain would be comparable to doing two hard rock back to back. No, even more, right? Like maybe two Euro 100 back to back. So
Yeah,
pretty
that's
intense.
yeah, that's about right. Yeah, we can jump right into tour. I Incredible race, incredible event. It links up to historic Altavias in the Alps. The Altavia Due on kind of the south and west side of the Val d'Aosta, and then the Altavia Uno takes you back kind of on the northeast side. And um, before I ever went to my first Tour de Géant, which was 2017, I was speaking with Joe Grant, another very well known ultra runner who's raced like everything, raced all over the world. And he said that the Tour de Géant, mile for mile, is the best race on the planet. And I was like, you mean like overall the best race on the planet? He's like, no, just it's that quality, mile for mile. It's 220 miles of running through a postcard. It's got everything that you could possibly want. Um, Unless you're looking for a fast marathon time, you're not going to find it there. It's incredible. Yeah, I mean,
330K, and what is the elevation gate on it?
yeah. So that's I've actually got a thing right here. It says 330K, 24,000 meters of gain and loss. So multiply that by three. That's roughly like 72,000 feet of climbing and descent. Um, but that's the thing about the tour too. That's what they advertise, but they're not going to let anybody down on shorting you on your climbing or your distance. The course changes a little bit every year, just a little bit, or like maybe they'll add a climb here, take another one out. Um, so that's sort of what they advertise is kind of like this is the least you can expect, and it's probably gonna be a little more.
What's the
So,
position in the course, Kevin? Do you know?
some of it has to do with like one of the years that I did it, it was the 10th anniversary of the race. So they dusted off a climb that they hadn't used since the first edition. And they just kind of wanted to throw all the really difficult things in. That was, they kind of rebranded to this Tour
Mhm.
X, and that X
Mm-hmm.
came, with the 10th anniversary. And they also wanted to just kind of throw out the most difficult variation. that suited me well, coming from like a climbing and mountaineering background. And actually, that 10th year was my best performance there. It was also the third year that I was there, so I kind of figured out the race a bit, but ended up sneaking into the top 20 overall,
Oh,
which was a good feeling. I was like, hey, all right.
yeah. I mean, it's a pretty deep field, so top 20 is actually pretty solid for a race like
Yeah,
that. That's amazing.
I wish that I had uh, been able to go back the next year, but it was COVID and all that
Hmm.
stuff the next year, because they every year that you do it, if you return, your bib number was whatever you placed the year
Mhm.
before. And
Um,
I grew up as a hockey player before I was really like into endurance sports and mountaineering. And my favorite hockey player that ever played for the Avalanche wore number 19. So I was like, oh my gosh, next year I get to
Mm.
wear 19 running around the Val d'Aosta. This is gonna be awesome. Then COVID happened and just didn't happen for me.
you
Haven't
gotta
So
been able
excuse
to
Kevin,
my
go back.
ignorance, but who's 19?
Oh, guy Joe Sakic was a great
Joe
hockey
Sakic,
player.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
mm,
that played for
Yeah, so
Colorado Avalanche when I was
as
like
much as I
12.
love like the Avalanche, you fuckers stole our team from the Nordic, and a bunch of players that we really loved, they were all gone. For me, my favorite one was Patrick Roy, 33, the
Yeah.
goalkeeper.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I thought
he is a.
I thought you were from California,
You're a
Simon.
proud Quebecer.
whoa, don't insult me, I'm Canadian.
Uh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's yeah, you good on you, Simon. You know your NHL
I,
history.
I was heartbroken when because he was not with the Nordic, he was with the Montreal Canadian, and
Yep, yes, he
he,
was.
he got super pissed one day, and then he just got the fuck out. That was basically what he did, and then he left. And he was my hero when I was a kid, so that was a
Wow.
bummer.
Well,
And then, of
I
course, you
was.
guys won the Stanley Cup basically right after it, so.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm looking over my shoulder because I actually somewhere right in here I have like a Patrick Waugh trading card just like sitting on the desk. It was a really random thing somebody sent in a box and I just saw it the other day. So
Yeah.
but
Anyway, that's
Hey,
pretty cool.
Kevin. Hey, Kevin.
yeah,
So you've done other events on multiple occasions. We'll use Run Rabbit Run because we just talked about that off air for a second. Um, and now we're talking about tour. Do you like the format of the changed course, or do you like the structure of knowing what's out there for each consecutive year? Which do you prefer? How does that work for you?
to be completely honest, I personally prefer both, but I think that it kind of comes down to goals. Like, if I want to go out and like race my best race, um, I'm gonna do better just personally, generally, if I know what to expect. I guess like kind of rehearsing it. Like I said, I came from a climbing and mountaineering background, and spent like a decade, like kind of projecting sport climbs and boulder problems and stuff like that. And I think I kind of take the same mindset into racing sometimes.
Mhm.
Like, one of the things that initially drew me to ultra running is like, holy crap, you send every time as long as you keep like, as long as your feet hit the ground before your face does, like you're sending. That's awesome. I mean, I spent a decade failing at climbing, with like little spurts of success. Felt like you were sending every time running, but that projecting mindset kind of crossed over into, okay, the very first time I go to an event, it's like the on-site. I give it my best, but like, you know, I'm going to learn so much. And then the next year, it's like all those goes in between the go. You have anxiety, you might high point, you might do whatever. Every single time that you try something, you learn something more, you make it easier, and then ultimately you have a big success, which may be the best performance that you can put out there. Running 100 miles long ways, like running 50 miles is a long ways, running 250 miles is a long ways, like it's all long ways. um and I don't know if you guys are like me, but like the mental gymnastics that you have to go through to just keep going, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. Like at Tour, like let's take Tour for example. Like every single time I've run it, I've had a low point at a little town called Latouille, which is like the second aid station. Might even be the first aid station. It's like 15 miles into 220, 230-mile race, and you've only done one climb, and it's the easy climb. And I've been there, and like my quads are already cramped up. Like everything, the magnitude of the event is like on my shoulders, and you're like, this isn't going to happen. And then somehow 2 days later, 3 days later, you're charging back into Courmayeur, and I mean, and it happened, and it's the entire way you're just kind of tricking yourself into going, and then your brain's trying to trick you into stopping. Like, it's it's all the game. It's all tricks.
It's so mental. Yeah, it's so mental, and I think a lot of people that are not used to ultra running, they somehow expect like if you run 100 miles, then you're gonna start struggling maybe at 70, 80. It's like nah. I still struggle at mile 20 sometimes, and then it gets super mental because you're kind of like, but there's so much to go, and I've never done a 200, but I can only imagine thinking like, man, I still got 230 miles to go, and I'm already tired, and I just fell down, and I'm puking, and I can't eat, and it kind of like you suffer for things to come. Whereas when you actually go through it, like it's easy to just like, well, now it's in the past, like I'm bleeding out of my ass, whatever. And no, I think that's super interesting.
All I was gonna say is, I mean, I like rehearsing stuff, and I like doing it the first time as well. But yeah, Brian, what's your opinion? I mean, you've done Leadville 10 times,
but still,
okay.
It depends if you count the ones you finished or not, right? But let's not
I have
go
10
there.
starts. I have 10 starts, 8
That's
finishes.
what I thought. I was like, I know you've got 10. Yeah.
Starts. 10 starts. Yeah, it's funny because I thought I had a bigger opinion, but hearing your answer actually does solidify it for me. I like your answer. I agree with your answer that I could go either way. I like the structure of knowing what's coming ahead, but I've had events where I've shown up and not previewed the course and done really well blindly, right? So I think both sides of that I can use to my advantage, and maybe I don't know what's coming. I don't know how big the climb is around the next bend, or how small it is, or how many more miles of running terrain I have, like runnable terrain before the climb. Maybe it's a little bit of guesswork because I didn't preview the course and don't really understand it fully. But like at Leadville, having finished 8 times, having started 10, now that you bring it up, thanks guys. I do. There are no surprises, right? I mean, unless there's a course change for whatever reason. There hasn't been one in a couple years. And it's not the same course it was 10 plus years ago. So I could see your point. I'm playing both sides of that. It could go either way for me as well. Tour changing their course is really cool, and it's unique in our sport. But like you think of like Tour de France, they're always changing their course every year, and there's always reroutes and so on and so forth. And so I like that as a spectator. And I was trying to figure out like how that works, like for your crew and for Liesel to like drive around Italy and figure out where you're at in the world. Are the aid stations similar? And are you just getting to the next aid station in a different manner?
Yeah, virtually all the aid stations are the same every year. I think the first year I did it, there was one that maybe wasn't in it in the other ones, and that race also, I don't know when they changed it, but they try to make it a lot more self-sufficient than definitely than races in the US. There are life bases, I think five of them, that are sort of like designated areas where the crew can meet with you. But really any aid from crew outside of those life bases. And then there are a couple of other aid stations that are like, especially they're like kind of more at the back half of the race, that are like pseudo life bases, that do allow some crew help or access. I guess the race tries to keep everything contained to those areas, and then the rest of it you're on your own, or just at the whim and the will of the volunteers at the race. And it's an incredibly well run organization. Oh my gosh. I will tell you, I know, Brian, you've run 200s in the US, and, you're running 20 miles between aid stations. Cocodona is that way. Tour Des Geants, even though it is the most epic, craziest terrain that you're running through, and it's so much longer than anything that I've done, like, just as far as like an overall effort, there's an aid station every like 5 miles. I mean, it's crazy. They helicopter in these like phone booth things onto high mountain coals, and they're serving you, hot tea and soup, and oh my gosh, it's awesome. So it's aided like 100-miler. But
why did we do Cocodona? I mean, why didn't we just go over to Europe?
But it's different setting, right? Like the Alps can be pretty hardcore, so they have to have that for safety, and it's such a bigger event. Like how many runners? Is it like 1,000 or 2,000 runner? I feel it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like something bad is bound to happen at some point. I remember when I was in the area, not for the race, someone died. I think maybe not during the race, but like someone stopped racing and then they died, and like they got to be careful. If there's a huge storm and you're up on some call, you're totally screwed. Whereas in Arizona, I mean, you'll be fine. So I think they have to be careful about that. But I think also a big difference between the Alps and the mountain in the US is you also have a freaking village everywhere all the time, and you have refuge all the time. Like you go in this crazy mountain, it's gorgeous, and then you walk down the valley for like 3 kilometers because they use a metric for whatever reason. And then it's like, oh, like I can go into like a pretty fancy restaurant here. So it's a different vibe. You don't get eaten by a bear, and you can eat in the restaurant. So it's pretty fancy.
Yeah, anyway. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Kevin, how many times have you? So you got in 3 times. But it seems like pretty good odds. But how many times have you applied to get in?
Tour. So I actually only applied once. So I got in the lottery. It's the only race I've had lottery luck in. Brian, you've been there for some of my other lottery failures, and they've been many. I literally have never gotten into another lottery race other than Tour, and I got in on my first try. And a friend of mine was doing PR for a company called Montaigne, which is they used to be a sponsor of Tour, and so I got in on the lottery, did okay my first year, finished, and then after that they were like, hey, do you want to make this like a formal relationship? And I've actually had a kind of a formal relationship with Montaigne ever since. And so I've been able to not only do Tour, which is a Montaigne race, but also been over to England for the Spine race twice. And you didn't see that on Ultra Sign Up because I actually, so I didn't, that's my DNF, and it's twice at Spine. I haven't figured that race out. On paper, it's way easier than something like Tor, and probably even easier than something like Cocodona on paper, like if you're just looking at the elevation profile. But just the difficulties of running through the hillsides in England, like the bogs and stuff, they've chewed me up and spit me out. I went 200 miles both times, but that's a 260-mile race or something like that. So came short. But yeah,
is Spine a stage race? Is what I'm trying to say?
No. They just start the time clock and you go get to the finish.
I'm thinking of another thing. I'm thinking. Oh,
you're thinking of the Dragon's Back.
Oh, I'm thinking of Dragon's Back. You're right. Totally.
Yep. Yeah, which is also a Montaigne event.
Totally.
But yeah, so 2019 was the last year that Montaigne sponsored Tour Des Geants, and it's the last year that I did it as well. To me the event's so great. Like, it doesn't really matter if I can again, get time off for work and make it work out, I'll go back to Tour any year. It's amazing. It's such a great experience. And then to like, if you can get over there and like, be around the UTMB like fanfare and stuff too, it's like the best vacation you could
Wait,
ever have.
Who?
Yeah, I know that maybe that's changed a little bit, but UTMB was cool when I was there.
Nah, people are still signing up for it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I need,
go ahead.
basically what I hear from what you're saying, Kevin, is I need better friends. I need to find a sponsor or something. But yeah, I applied this year, didn't get in, but I'll get in next year.
Was that your only
maybe.
time applying, Simon?
Yeah.
Is that your first application?
Yeah, I mean, what I heard is about like you have like maybe like a third or half of the people that get in. So I didn't want to apply when I was not so sure if I had the time on my schedule. And this year felt good, but yeah, I could have applied before, but it's quite a commitment, like you mentioned. You have to go there. You have to really have a block that you're not racing just before that race or right after, because you're gonna be messed up for sure. And I just didn't have that in the past. I did a Grand Slam, so there was an overlap with Wasash last year. Which one was it? I can't remember. But basically, I was just kind of stuck around that time. But now I made the hole, and they didn't pick me. So I need better friends.
Yeah, no, keep applying. Keep
Yeah,
applying.
for sure. I mean, that if I can, that's the thing. Like that's always a problem. Because simplicity is a thing, right? And we mentioned it before we start recording. It's nice to have a race in your backyard and you're just driving there. It takes 2 hours. You know everything about it. Because when you guys were talking about a race like a new course or old course, I hate, if it's a race I've done before, I hate if they change the course. What I do if I want a new course is I just pick another race. If I'm coming back to the same, it's because I like this one and I want to see, like, am I faster than last year? So I have my race that I do every year. So if they change the course, like Coldwater, they totally changed the course. And now I'm like, man, I can't compare that anymore. But it's nice to have some race that I don't need to worry about it. I know exactly where to put my drop bag. I know more or less within like 30 minutes where I'll be. And if my wife is coming and crewing, like we know what we need, and there's like no question, like when there's a water crossing, these things. But it's also kind of boring. So it's a little like, I don't know if you guys moved a little bit where you live, but I moved quite a few times in my life. And when you move in a new town, you try a restaurant. And at some point, like if you move in a place like New York, you're not gonna try every restaurant, but at some point you gotta say, I like this one. And that's a restaurant you'll go often. Not always. Sometimes you want something new, but you come back often. And the day they change their menu and their chef, then you're pissed. You're like, no, I liked it the way it was before. Don't change that. If I want something there, if I don't want pizza, I'll go somewhere else today. So that's my rant against Coldwater changing their course this year. I'm mad angry.
So I've eaten a lot of food in Leadville, and Leadville's changed their race platform in the last 15 years quite a bit.
That's true.
But I still keep going to Leadville and eating the restaurants.
There's not that many restaurants in Leadville, though. You can actually try all of them.
True.
I think.
We're on this thread of 200 milers, and
yes.
And we need some intel, Kevin. We need some intel on Cocodona 250. We're newbies here. We're like fresh meat just thrown to the wolves. We are on nearly March 1st. We're at the end of February right now, and we're about 3 months out from Cocodona. So what kind of advice do you have for Simon and I?
Yeah,
what should we
I've never
prepping
raced
for?
at 200. Like, at least, Brian, you have some experience there, but I'm fresh meat. I've done 100 mile and that's it. So.
All right, so don't underestimate the heat. And Brian, like, get some heat adaptation in. I think that you should be programming it into your training like now.
Which segment is hot? Because I did Sedona last year, Sedona 125, which was the second half. And like from maybe like going down from Jerome, you kind of come down and get hot a little bit until Sedona. And then you're up on the Tonto, and then it's actually not that bad. But I don't know before.
it was really pleasant up on the Coconino Plateau, but the
Yeah.
Bradshaws are super hot. So
The first
uh,
day, 2 days,
Okay.
the first
pretty
day
pretty
was cooking
toasty.
me. It so we had that experience of it was a great winter to ski last year. It was cold in our area, and all of a sudden we had stayed up on Lizard Head Pass on the way driving down to, Cocodona. I mean, it's like 10 feet of snow everywhere. It was 28 degrees out. Uh, that afternoon, the next afternoon when we were driving into Phoenix, it's 101 degrees on our car thermometer. And it was shocking. And everybody was talking about like, oh yeah, it's going to be really hot. Yeah, I know it's going to be really hot. I underestimated the heat. And there's no cover, there's no shade on that first day. Um, we had kind of like a nice breeze that everybody from Arizona was like, it's not too hot. I mean, it was like high 90s, but they were like, oh no, it's not too hot because we've got this breeze, and it was like this like it was just barely a breeze, and I was like, if that breeze wasn't there, I would have died.
Like a
And
hot fart.
that's exactly I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, that's what it felt like. And the Bradshaws are, they're so it's awesome that they are as rugged as they are, especially being that close to like the Black Canyon Trail, which I understand is not super technical, but like it's all hard scrabble mountains and loose underfoot, and it's not the fastest miles for sure. You're definitely not going very quick, and there is I feel like it was like a roughly 40-mile section, where there's just a water drop in the middle, and that's it.
Mm.
And so that was difficult. I mean, that's the first thing that hits you, and you're like, whoa, all right. I'm I'm like, feel like I'm kind of bloating, like I'm screwing up all of my nutrition, my hydration, everything is like, messed up. And you're like, again, it's the same experience as like what I was kind of saying at Tour. You're like 20 miles into a 250-mile race, and you're like, nah, no way I can finish this. And you just kind of keep playing tricks with yourself, and and ultimately you get there. But yeah, the heat is real, not just for the runners, but also for the crew. So
Mm.
that's my other tip is I didn't realize how hard crewing that race would be for the crew. I mean, it's one like, obviously like we're all runners and we like just think about, we're really, I don't know. I guess I'm like self-centered when it comes to racing. And at the end of it, my wife had to deal with the same heat. And so like, and I also had two pacers that were nice enough to come down. And they all had to deal with the same heat. And, basically they were just like, get to an aid station, kind of unload some stuff, wait. I get there, I sleep or do whatever. They pack it all up and they keep going. They are on my schedule, and sometimes their opportunity to rest is in the middle of the day when it's also 90 degrees. So they're not sleeping. And um, ultimately, by the end of that, and I, for different reasons, I messed up logistically, like how much sleep I needed, just because I had made a mistake, basically scheduling work beforehand, and ended up in a huge sleep deficit later in that race. Um, but ultimately, at the end of the race, like we kind of took inventory, and I was like, man, I think I slept like twice as much as you did, and I was running the race. Like,
Mm.
so yeah, it's for Cocodona, it's all heat. If you can manage, so the heat affected my feet. The heat affected my nutrition. The heat affected my crew and overall morale. And then once I got up onto the Cocodona Plateau, I was like, boom, I'm having the best race of my life. But the first 100,
I mean, for sure, heat,
130
like,
miles was hot.
yeah, for sure, heat. People think like, oh, I'm gonna feel hot. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Like, that's part of the issue. But just even thinking about the water capacity that you need to carry, if aid stations are 40 miles apart, I mean, you got to carry enough water. Otherwise, you're gonna be in deficit, dehydrated. It's gonna be terrible. And yeah, I totally agree with the crew. For us, like at Badwater, I was the opposite of you. I was actually worried for my crew all the time and wondering if they were okay. And I'm like, I'm fine. Like, they give me ice, I'll be fine. But I don't want them to suffer. And, the car gets hot. Like it's basically kind of an oven and they have nowhere to go. So I totally understand that. Yeah. And how did you manage your sleep schedule? How did you plan ahead of time for that?
Yeah, so here's my pro tip on I guess this is from 100 mile or from 200 milers and other like weird things that I've done. I've kind of devised like a sleep strategy that anecdotally, like, I mean, it works for me, and I think everybody needs to experiment and kind of come up with their own. But for something that's going to take me like 3 to 4 days, I'll target 2 hours of sleep per day, and I'll try to do that from day one. So yeah, just average 2 hours per day. And if it's going to take less than 3 days, you can probably take some risks and not sleep at all. And if it's going to take longer than that, then you probably need to sleep more than 2 days or 2 hours per day. At least I would. But so yeah, my plan was to do 2 hours on average per day. So I initially slept at Whiskey Row. And then
So Whiskey
slept
Row
in
is like
Jerome.
mile 90 or something.
Maybe. I hit it in the first night, like in the morning or something. I was going pretty quick. Like if you've heard some other stories, like I mean, obviously Mike like dropped way into the back, but like when he missed like an aid station, and like was like, holy crap, I missed an aid station. I had to run back and then still somehow set the course record. He like came piling out of the trees. And he's like, yo, Kevin, where's the aid station? I'm like, dude, it's a mile and a half back that way. And
Oh, so he went through town and he didn't see it, like that left turn or whatever. Yeah.
it was the one that he missed was Camp Keepa, which is up before you get to Whiskey Row. And yeah, it was a rookie mistake that obviously a veteran can make because I guess there's another just little tidbit, like, yeah, keep your eye open for the little arrow that points you to Camp Keepa.
Yeah,
Is it out and back? Is that an out and back section or something?
Yeah, it's a little out and back, but like, I mean, you just you go a couple of hundred yards off the road, but like there is just a little arrow, and you know how Aravaipa like marks their races. It's just that regular arrow, but apparently even a machine.
Yeah, but if you miss the arrow on an out and back section, then you're still technically on the course by going forward. So you're seeing more arrows. Yeah, so it's not like you're like you like the alarms aren't set in your head like, oh, I don't see any more arrows. Like you're seeing the arrows, but you have missed a 2-mile section of an out and back that you're supposed to have turned.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
My pro tip for that, guys, by the way, it's pretty easy. If you're a mid packer, you always have people around you, so you don't miss turns. Just run slower. Right. Trust me, it works.
Plenty of people around, middle of the pack. Plenty
exactly.
Of us.
Although I have had situation where we were like at least 50 or 100 people missing a turn, and that's always awkward. But yes, that has happened.
Here's an honest statement: is that I missed a turn at Leadville, and it wasn't in probably my first 3 or 4 finishes. It was like later on in my things, and I was just spacing out. I was looking at the dirt road in the ground, and there was feet in front of me, and I followed the guy that didn't make the turn. And then I came to and I looked around, and it was only like a quarter mile, luckily. But I was like, so I had to yell to him, get his attention to turn around. He was wearing like one earbud in, but luckily not the other. So I was able to get his attention. He turned around and came back, and we went back to the correct turn. And somebody was following me because I was following him. And but
can we all
at an
agree
event that I've done
like,
6 times, yeah.
Can we all agree also, like, I feel like there's so many people that I've like witnessed this where somebody's like, you know, trudging off into the wilderness or whatever, and somebody's like, that guy's lost. Like, I'm gonna use this opportunity to, like, you know, gain some ground. Like, we should all just, you know, make a pact to be like, bro, course is this way. You know,
I've never seen anyone that wouldn't say it. Like, and I have myself like sprint behind someone to catch them and say, hey, like, you're going the wrong way. Yeah. If someone would not tell me, I would be pissed. I would be very pissed.
Like, again, to Simon and I's point is that's definitely a mid-pack thing.
Yeah,
like we
exactly.
always stop and get the person back.
Look, I mean, I stop to pet dogs. Like, that's how, like, in a rush I am to, like, finish. I'm just like, oh, that's a nice dog. Like, let's play a little bit. So I would be pissed if someone doesn't tell me.
Seriously, I think that just
so day one last year, you had really hot weather, just kind of right out of the gun, coming from high mountain Colorado. So Simon's in a different boat than we are, Kevin. Simon's down in the San Diego coast area, and so, you know, you're coming from a really good winter in winter conditions, but and I've done it too, and I know exactly. I've gone to Arizona and raced in April in an Ironman way back in the day. And I drove there in a snowstorm with my triathlon bike on the roof of my car. So how much water, like, did you, I mean, I'm sure you carried all the required water, but did you carry any additional, how much, I mean, what's this water drop look like? Like, give us a rundown of day one and what should I expect?
Yeah. So, the water drop also can be easy to miss. You cross over, I think, like kind of the only creek, in that section. And then, the water drop was literally just a bunch of gallons of water on the backside. Actually, they might have been 5-gallon,
blue totes or whatever
things.
Those blue totes are.
Yeah, those things. But they were on like the backside of a shed. Also, it, like, you know, you kind of had to. It's like, oh, there's a shed. Okay. Oh, I got to walk around the backside of it, and then there's just a bunch of like kind of gallons of water or blue things of water. Right there, and it is literally just water. There's no snacks or anything like that. And so yeah, when you finally get to I can't even remember the name of it, but the first kind of real aid station, it's great, and look forward to good food kind of all through that. But
did you use all your water? Did you run out of water? Did you have extra water?
I ran out of water too. I used all my water and I ran out. I had 3-liter Camelback, I definitely had a liter of the Catadyne, like, Be Free bottles, and then 2 regular soft flasks. So total carrying capacity, that's like a gallon and a liter. So 5 liters basically.
That's 5 liters, yeah.
Yeah, basically 5 liters. And
the requirement is 4, so you were a little heavy on that. Okay. And you still needed more.
I used it all. And I filled up at the water drop. I don't think I filled everything up at the water drop, but I needed it all. I'm also, I mean, I'm sitting in a chair, but I'm 6'5", almost 200 pounds. So, like, I'm a bigger person, probably not as efficient in the heat, but the heat kind of kicked my butt. And the heat kicked my butt on, I don't know if it was, it must have been day 2 whenever I was going through Sedona. It got hot again. Oak Creek was like bliss. Oh my gosh. Like, there's no place better than that crossing in Oak Creek. I was like, I just totally.
Is that the one after Sedona?
Yeah, it's after Sedona. Yeah, you've seen that section.
Yep.
That got so hot too. I mean, but yeah, the Bradshaws are the standout crux of that race. And look forward to hopefully they're still doing it at the Eldon aid station. They forced me to take some steak. I was glad they did, because normally you're not thinking like, oh my gosh, some steak at an aid station. And I was definitely not thinking that. I'm like, I'm running 8 miles down to town. Like that's the finish line. I'm done. And Peter Mortimer's like, nah, bro, you're taking some steak, and put like 2 pieces of steak in my mouth or in my hand, and I just ate it like on the jog down the hill. It was like melting your mouth. I've never had a better cooked steak in my life. It was crazy, and he was doing it on a camp stove. So if you're a meat eater, look forward to that on the top of Eldon. Hopefully, he's still doing it.
I will take steak at an aid station.
Yeah, oh, so good. But
awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit. I know that you're going through some real quick, like some injury recovery, rehab type of stuff. I'm
Yes.
pretty sure you haven't. It's not running related, or the
It's
initial
not.
injury. It was. I think you were playing hockey with the hockey
good.
team up in Aspen.
Yeah, good work.
Yeah.
Current status is IPOS. I tore my MCL in the middle of December. The recovery from that initially I was pretty devastated. I thought I'd blown out my whole knee, and went in and got an MRI and got some imaging done the next day, and found out that it was kind of the best scenario of a bad scenario. Immediately, I guess, injury day 0, day 1, started thinking about recovery, and basically asked my doctor, who I know him from, just a little bit, I guess, back up a little bit. I am a cardiac nurse and also have done a bunch of other things in the Valley, and maybe we'll talk about that. I knew my doctor both professionally and then also have passed him running up Aspen Mountain countless times. And so I got a list of basically things right away that I could do to try to stay in shape, and so I was just recovery focused basically from injury day 1. And
what does that look like, Kevin? What does that list look like? What, like, are you doing Graston? Are you doing cupping? I just got this question the other day from an athlete. That's really sort of the impetus on why I was bringing it up. Are you doing like cross training? Are you focusing on upper body strength work because your lower knee is just problematic and you're trying to give it some rest? What's going on there? What does that look like?
Right away. So a lot of cross training, and I am running now as well, just not a ton of volume. A lot of cross training. Anything that basically I could stay in line. So I was on an exercise bike on like I said, day 1. I've been doing a lot of trainer miles, and that's relative, a lot for me. I have been doing a lot more strength training. Kind of got back into climbing a little bit just at the gym. Although I need to stay away from like drop knee maneuvers and stuff like that, anything that puts a medial load in. I'm kind of out of the danger zone when it comes to like going back to square one, but the trouble with an MCL injury is that they are easy to re-injure. It was a partial tear. I did a lot of damage, but it wasn't complete, so I avoided surgery, which was good. But yeah, cross training, physical therapy, those are the things that I've been doing. And
what about like the new age stuff?
Good.
The Graston, are you doing any cupping, any dry needling, any of those newer age resources out there? No,
I am not.
Okay.
I'm familiar with all
Fair
those. My wife has utilized those. She sees a doctor in Basalt that does those and speaks pretty highly of them. But I don't know. I'm kind of old school, I guess, in a way. I mean, maybe not. Maybe that's real old school because that's like Eastern medicine. But um, yeah,
It's true.
I'm kind of old school where yeah, just physical therapy, rehab, and then
Mhm.
cross training. Taking the opportunity to strengthen the core again. In all these years, uh, being an ultra runner, I think that my core has gotten kind of weak, and um, I think that a strong core, especially with trail running, is really critical. And it at least for me, when I first got going, it steepened my learning curve. Like just having
Mhm.
an incredibly strong core, it steepened my learning curve, uh, and probably allowed me to get away with some things that I would never recommend, like a coaching client or anybody who's getting into ultra running to try to do. Um, but yeah, just being overall strong and just kind of a well-rounded athlete, I think helps. So yeah, I'm taking the opportunity to tap back into climbing. I got chalky hands right now, um,
Nice. So
and yeah, I am running a
what about
little.
like what about your mental game? Like is all this cross training and this climbing and spinning on the bicycle and the little bit of running that you are doing, is that satiating the need to get out and be physical like you have been in the past? I mean, obviously your running
Mm,
resume on Ultra Sign Up is really
yeah,
robust. And are you satiating that, or is there some mental struggles still there just because you're not getting it all in?
yeah. No, the easy answer, Brian, is no. It's definitely not satiating that um, that need to get out, and ultimately it's what it is doing is it's kind of fueling the creativity um, side of my mind. Like, I don't just race. Like, I also go like
Hmm.
do adventures. I do FKTs, things like that. um, so uh, I am signed up for a couple of races this year. They're both at the end of the summer, and then maybe like later in the fall. um, I'll probably throw the purse at a bigger kind of loop project thing that I've been working on for a couple of years, like in Western Colorado and Eastern Utah. So, and it's not really like it's not like extreme. It's really just like an endurance project,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I think this time, like on the bike and stuff like that, just is motivating me for something big later in
Hmm.
the year. But right now, no, I'm kind of a basket case. I mean, like,
I appreciate your honesty because I mean I know without the outlet of exercise that I would be hard to be to live with. I feel like that's just a thing, and not
no
that
doubt.
running and training is therapy for the mind, but it surely helps. Like it surely
Yeah,
is a consideration for help.
yeah. I'm a big proponent of just of habits, training habits, um and things like that. So and then I think like a lot of us, I mean, I don't put all of my, I mean, I have a day job. I have my identity is not all
Hmm.
endurance sports, mountain athlete, but it definitely is a huge part of my identity. And especially right away in that acute phase, like right when I first hurt my knee, um, I had a crisis of I had an identity crisis immediately. I was laying on the ice and was just like, I just looked at my knee and was like, holy crap. I just lost like the majority of me. What am I going to do? I don't even know. And I'm still kind of like piecing that together. I'm pretty darn mobile. Like this recovery's gone incredibly well. Like I said, it was like the best case scenario, worst case scenario, but it knocked me off of a lot of yeah, just like a normal training schedule. It it knocked me off of the good habits that I had, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. That's kind of a dangerous place to be sometimes, especially somebody like who has, you know, I mean, I think that a lot of endurance athletes kind of have like an addictive personality, and I'm there. Luckily, it's sports, and when you don't have sports, you're like, oof, this is kind of a nervy, scary place to be. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's
but
definitely
yeah,
a huge like mental component of injuries also. I never had something as serious as that, but I've had a couple of times to the point where I couldn't walk for basically a month, or like, I could go to the toilet, but I couldn't walk a mile. And I was really getting kind of darker and darker. And very quickly you can do other sports, like you could go swimming, I could bike, but I couldn't like put weight. But anytime I would see anyone running in the park, I would just be pissed. I would be like not angry at them, but and like I think I'm a positive guy, but I was like nah, this is so fucking unfair, like this is bullshit. I used to be able to do that, and now, like I can't even walk, and like I was really getting like grumpy, even though I had other sports. It was just I want to run right now, like that, like I don't have the freedom to do that. And even if it's not racing, I'm a big hiker. I think if my
yeah,
running would ever get me to a point where, like we always joke about knees, but like if I had problem that would be severe enough to not be able to even hike, I would very much regret that I was running so much. I'm not worried about it because that's kind of a myth, but it's kind of the outlet, and not being able to do what you want to do for me was the biggest like frustration. Yeah, I was dark. I was really dark. So,
yeah, it's forced me to get creative.
hmm.
Um, yeah, um, but yeah, I don't know, it's good. The I think the worst, definitely. I'm on the upswing. Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, I'm not
Yeah, I think
not thinking about
I
racing
definitely think
anytime
that
soon.
there is that oh shit, that panic button that just automatically goes off. It sends you into that spiral. And for me personally, like I know I have that personality, that addictive personality, and I just have to put that energy into something else. Um, for me, it's kind of funny. For me, it's probably all those house projects I haven't gotten to because I've been running. For me, it's maybe it's work or family or something else, but I have to recognize that I need um, to fill that space with something. I can't sit around and watch YouTube videos of running and be all pissed off um, at myself for overdoing it or tripping and falling or whatever it might be. Knock on wood, I'm fortunate I haven't had an injury in a while, but I have had injuries. I've been a lifelong runner. I'm running for over 30 years easily.
That's why I'm
And,
checking on
and
you
quite
every
a
time, Brian. I'm making sure
yeah.
your knees are
Well, I mean,
okay.
yeah, and I'm getting old, man. I'm running with these high school kids,
Sorry,
and
you're
I
not
used to be able to
getting
keep up with
old. You're
them.
old. It's very different. You're fat.
Older, I'm
I'm
getting
getting
older.
old. I'm slowly
But
getting there.
these high school kids are able to smoke me now, and I was like, holy smokes, it's really catching up to me.
Yeah, I mean,
I used
and
to be able
young
to smoke
people,
them.
how quickly they bounce back. Because you're right, like when I was pissed at being injured, it's not like a hockey accident, like it's not a traumatic event. It's just I pushed too hard, I was dumb, and very quickly you're like, why was I so stupid? Like, why didn't I slow down when I felt that there was a little something in my knee? I just blew it up. Like I felt like
Mhm.
Simon, like you don't be a little bitch, like keep running, and then afterwards you can't walk for a month. Like how stupid was that? Like I knew something was wrong. So yeah, the frustration was definitely there. But yeah, you see those kids and they're like, dang, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very impressed. I guess I would have been like that. And that's also different. I was not an athlete growing up, so I never actually experienced being able to do these crazy workouts and then the next day be totally fine. Like I'm feeling it. I've never felt young in sports. So
Yeah, you never know how close you are to the line, right? Like, I
yeah.
mean, we're all trying to like we're trying to push as close as we can to the line, and then you know sometimes you cross over it, and
Yeah,
Well,
like
it's
Yeah.
maybe
good
it's not
hurt
even a
and bad
line.
hurt.
Maybe it's just like maybe it's not even a line. It's just a gray area, right?
Yeah.
You don't know how like you don't know where that. It's not a definitive line, right? It's more of a gray space,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
butting up against it,
But
and
there's definitely
sometimes you go
good
over
pain
it.
and bad pain, you know, like even I think like good pain sometimes is way more painful, and bad pain sometimes, like when you have experience, it's just like, hey, like that does not feel normal. Like this is not how I should be feeling. Like that's just not normal. It's not like a screaming pain. It's just like, I should slow down. And usually that's a good reflex. But yeah, there's been time where I was just like, let's keep pushing. Like I'm doing a PR, like, and then you do it, and then shit. Oopsie. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're dealing with it. I'm glad that you're healing. I know that you're back to running. I think you ran
Little
a few
bit.
miles with us, a little bit. No, but you ran a few miles with us. With the last time I went to the group run,
Yeah.
I think you came out to the Christmas lights run in my town in Glenwood.
I missed that one. No, Liesel did, but that was
That's
right
right. I did see that.
afterwards.
Yeah.
I was living on the couch. I think I probably hit the trainer that night, but yeah, yeah, venturing onto. I mean, yeah, I ran 2.5 miles today. It was nice.
Good. The start, right?
Up on Thompson Creek, so not
There you
technical
go.
or anything.
So Kevin and I do live in the same valley. We literally run in the same circles of people, but it's an interesting connection on how we met, and I do want to touch on it just because it is kind of an interesting twist of a story. I'll share my side, and then I'll let Kevin chime in at the end and finish it off for us. But in short order, in 2015, I was trying to think of this out. About 2015 or so, I got my last DUI. I was not in a good headspace. I was drinking and driving. I got a ticket in Glenwood. I got pulled over. I got arrested. The whole thing. It was my third offense in the state of Colorado in 22 years or so that I've lived at the time that I lived here. And that meant I had to do quite a bit of jail time. I think it's 60 days, if I'm not mistaken. I worked for town government in Snowmass Village, which is in the county next to mine, in Pitkin County, farther up valley towards Aspen, from where I live in western Colorado. And I was a town employee at the time. I worked for a recreation center. I ran their swimming pool. I wasn't the mayor or anything really cool. I was a pool boy for a small town in Pitkin County, but our communities are really small, and people did favors for me. Maybe they like me. I hope that they like me, and maybe that's why I got some favors pulled for me. But I was able to go and do my 60 days in a work release program in the Aspen County Jail, and it was just this weird program. I was able to check myself out in the morning. I had to go directly to the bus to get to the recreation center to show up to work, and then call in and let them know I made it to work. They would check the caller ID. It was this whole process. I wasn't a full inmate. I didn't go to the inmate side and eat meals with the full-time inmates in their orange suits or whatever they wore on that side of the house. I didn't even see them, quite honestly. I had to go to I got released for an hour 3 times a day to go get myself food in downtown Aspen in a weird way and in a weird twist. And I had to go and then report back in. I had to take breathalyzers and get patted down every time I left and came from the facility. But I was in my own little wing in a side office or a side portion of the jail. But I was definitely in the Pitkin County Jail. I was an inmate for 60 days, and but I was lucky to be able to keep my job. I was fortunate to be able to still keep my job that paid the bills, and I was fortunate enough that during my 1 hour meal breaks, they were sort of unstructured. I was allowed to do a little outdoor activities as well, and so I played the system a little bit, and I'm sure that that others have too. But I would go in the morning to the grocery store and get meals for the rest of the day, and then at lunch and dinner times, I would go run for the 1 hour that I was allowed outside. I would go run all of downtown Aspen. I would run Smuggler Mountain back, and I would see how many miles I could get in 1 hour. So I get like these really hard workouts inside of the 1 hour window. It was the strangest thing. I don't drink anymore. I'm 7 years sober. I got sober a little bit after that. I did leave that facility and continued abusing alcohol for a little bit longer. And then I'll let Kevin finish off that story of 2015.
Yeah, so I met Brian Pacenti because I was a deputy at the Pickett County Jail, in which he was an inmate. And yes, he was able to serve his sentence because, a DUI shouldn't necessarily ruin somebody's entire life. I mean, it's a tough valley, tough area to live in. And, oftentimes in other jurisdictions, yeah, Brian might have lost his job and in turn lost his livelihood, in turn lost his housing, family, everything. It would have ruined his life. So Pickett County does have a work release program that enables people to continue living their life, and a lot of people refer to it colloquially as the Pickett County Aspen Freehab. Because it's an opportunity, I guess, for a lot of folks maybe to be sober for the first time in a long time. I've been wanting to have this conversation just with Brian, for a couple of reasons. First off, like if you look back at my ultra sign up, you'll see that my ultra running career kind of began in 2015, and it kind of coincided with meeting this crazy guy who was in jail, who would go running on his lunch breaks, and I knew that he had done like Leadville and stuff like that. So I was like, man, it's crazy. Like this guy's in jail and he can do Leadville. Like, how hard can it be? Those are the mental games and stuff that you play. I have heard on another podcast that you were like, oh man, jail was kind of a joke because I got to go running for an hour, on all my things, and it really didn't like make me change my behavior. That's a bummer. I really wished that it would have, made you change some of your behaviors. But just like what I was just talking about, kind of keeping good habits, I strongly advocated for you to be able to run on your lunch breaks, because there were definitely people that, and you, I didn't know you very well. I didn't know you at all. I mean, you didn't know me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of by design, but I wanted you to run. I wanted you to keep running. I kind of imagined myself in your shoes and knew that if I wasn't able to run, then it would be a much, much more negative outcome. You don't fix a problem that took a whole lifetime to create overnight or even over 60 days. But I hoped that creating those good habits, keeping on running, keeping on having physical activity as part of your life, would ultimately be another building block towards a better Brian. And yeah, so that's how we met. And you also made a better me, because you were just another building block of, holy crap, now I know somebody who is doing crazy things, and it shrunk that crazy thing a little bit, where it was like, if I don't know anybody personally who's run 100 miles, then 100 miles is impossible to me, or darn close to it. But all of a sudden I knew one more person that did, and that person was a regular human being just like me, and that person went through all. You're not a superhero. You were in jail. And so I was hoping that you running would make you better, but you also made me better. And it definitely was a big push towards towards all the crazy things now I've done in 10 years.
Well, I appreciate that, Kevin. That's really great to hear. We actually haven't had this conversation. If
No,
you
we
can't
haven't.
tell
This is the first time
from listening, yeah, for other people listening. I did talk about it on a podcast, and I didn't learn my lessons because I went back out and kept on drinking. But I think some of the things that did stick with me is that when I left there, I was actually, I think people have like that image of the alcoholic in their mind. Like I was like drinking at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was waiting for the liquor store to open up at 9:15. But I wasn't. I was like the weekend drinker. When I did drink, I wouldn't stop. But I went to work Monday through Friday, or whatever I worked. I guess you know what I mean. Like I wasn't the stereotypical image that we think of an alcoholic. I wasn't that type of gutter type of drinker. But when I did drink, I couldn't stop until all the alcohol in front of me was gone. And I went back out, and so I didn't learn my lessons. I think one of the. I mean, of course, I'm appreciative that the Pitkin County system was able to give me the opportunities to maintain what I do have and currently have now as a result. Losing my job would have been a huge setback. I mean, it could have been, losing my life essentially, as you mentioned, but I didn't learn enough because it wasn't hard enough, if that makes any sense as well. There was a fine line where I needed a little more, like I almost didn't need any more favors. Like I needed to learn a hard lesson. Fortunately, I was able to learn that farther on down the line and get myself clean and sober. But I didn't learn it from the prison system, unfortunately, from Pitkin County. Although I was appreciative that I was able to maintain what I had as stability.
Yeah. I mean, it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, totally. No, I mean, I think there was a ton of people in there that benefited from the program, and quite honestly, I'll never live in downtown Aspen, but I did for 60 days.
Yeah, that was the cheapest rent in Aspen. Oh man.
Yeah.
No, that's
so interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you kept running. Honestly, like whether you thought it was hard enough or not.
I came out. It's a pretty good fitness.
Yeah. A DUI shouldn't be a death sentence.
Yeah, it was good. I'm appreciative of the system, and in the long haul, I mean, things worked out. But for me, it wasn't that lesson. That was the changing point, quite honestly.
Yeah, but that's how we met, and that's also like I said, that I think that when you'd sent the thing earlier, I don't think I ever told you that you were a major reason that I started running ultras. I mean, I was a rock climber. I went on a trail run with my wife, and then also kind of knew this guy. That you weren't the only one. There's another guy that I was like, oh man, regular person that wanted to kick a smoking habit and ran Bighorn. Like, oh cool.
Yeah.
So, but knowing that people that run these events are normal people, even people that, I mean, hell, like, yeah, I've done some cool stuff. I also held down a normal 9 to 5 job, or actually not 9 to 5, like all kinds of weird hours.
Yeah, you worked some crazy hours at the jail for sure.
Yeah, and then hospital stuff too has been crazy. That's another just little tip, like with 200 milers in particular. I mean, 100 milers, you can it's sort of the same stuff, but I for Cocodona, I screwed up my sleep by working a night shift like the Thursday before the race started. Granted, the race started on Monday, and I was like, nah, Thursday, that's fine. I'll be recovered by Monday. But really, set yourself, get good sleep, bank sleep for a week beforehand. I didn't mean to just twist it back into that, but I've worked a lot of shift work and had messed up sleep schedules and things like that. And that just popped into my head with Cocodona because
Sure, sure.
it really set me back. So another little tip for when you guys get there, bank sleep ahead of time. I know, Bri, you've done. Have you done Moab twice?
I've done 2
Or
Moabs, yeah.
yeah, 2 Moabs.
Yeah. And I think well, Simon and I mean, Simon's done the 100 and 125 and 135 at Badwater. But I mean, I could also relate that back to our Simon and I's experience at Uray, which went almost a full 2 days.
Yeah, a little more even, 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the sleep part of it. Yeah, and specifically related to the sleep topic that you were just referencing.
Yeah, I heard having kids is a great
Yeah.
way to prepare for ultra. You learn to deal with puke, poop, and no sleep. So
Yeah, kids and shift work.
yep.
Definitely.
Hey, thanks for sharing that, Kevin. I appreciate that. That was really great. I'm really pleased to know you and have met you, even though the circumstances were awkward to just indifferent. As you being a prison guard and me being an inmate, it was just kind of an awkward introduction to each other. But I appreciate your insight and sharing that as well.
Totally. It was the roles that we were playing at the time, right?
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna try to wrap this up real quick.
All right.
Kevin wears a lot of hats. If you can't tell, I'm not even sure what he does currently, but I know he's been a nurse, and I know he's worked for the county, obviously in the prison system. But he's also been a 911 dispatcher. And Kevin also is a coach through USCA.
I am, yeah.
Ultra running coach, yeah. So quickly, what do you do for work currently, Kevin?
Yeah. So I was not a dispatcher. That was my wife. But yeah, I am a certified death investigator. So I actually have investigated over 100 deaths in my career. So yeah, I work for the coroner's office in Pitkin County. I also work for the sheriff's office. Again, I'm a cardiac nurse as well, but not currently practicing at the bedside. I'm taking another break from the hospital, and that may be permanent. I don't know. Yeah. So that is what I do, and
Are you coaching part time?
Yeah, a little bit. I have a handful of clients, mostly first responders and shift workers, and I'm pretty much just do programming for folks that want to take kind of that shift work experience and see what they can do in a trail race.
Nice.
Because yeah, I think that especially the experience of staying up overnight and like night shift life also translates well to ultras, but a lot of times there's a mismatch on maybe the just an organized training structure. So yeah, I do build some training plans for first responders, things like that.
Awesome. So we usually at the end of the program here, we have the coach's corner.
And we have two coaches. I'll ask the question then.
And we have two coaches. So I'd love to hear your ideas on these two questions that come in through social media that get filtered in, and so we'll trickle them out to us now.
All right, coaches. I have a question from Mark B. Is it Bauer? Is it our Mark?
Yeah.
It's our. Oh.
It's our buddy
that
Mark.
Makes a double meaning,
it's Mark from episode 2.
Yeah.
It's Mark from episode 2.
Look, Kevin, the guy came on our podcast and he called me a slow runner. So anyway, he's asking, do I need to do speed work for ultras or run slow all the time? What do you guys think?
My answer is do some speed work. Yes.
And more specifically, what would you recommend? All up and what type of workout?
I like to program, generally I'll program like a pyramid speed workout, whatever keeps somebody motivated, honestly. But if they're like open to anything, then I like structuring pyramid workouts on a track, and then also hill intervals, 3-minute hills.
Definitely, Mark.
Yes.
You should be doing speed work. You should be building in the least amount or the least specific speed work farthest away from your event. So you should be doing the intervals now. So it's February. I should timeline this. It's February now, and if you're racing in September, you should be doing your interval work now. In a few months, you should be turning that into tempo work, which is a little bit longer, between 5 and 12 minutes efforts with half recovery between them. The intervals should be 1-to-1, 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off, as an example, to Kevin's example. And then steady state runs as we get closer to the event, which are longer durations of 15 minutes or better. So it might be 15 by 3 or 2 by 20 or 3 by 20 minutes on, with halftime recovery as well, or even maybe less than halftime, maybe just 5 or 6 minutes between those. Of course, those intensities are the greatest on the intervals. Tempo is a little less intense, and then steady state obviously is less intense than that. And that's when we get into the specifics of the event that you're doing for an ultra.
Yeah, and I guess the
That's
second
how I
layer to
structure
that
the
is like
training program.
if you guys could comment as to what are you trying to do with these higher intensity workout? Like, what's the benefit? Because I think the rationale of the question is like, look, I'm gonna be averaging 4 miles an hour at most, and that would be a sub 24 basically. So do I really need to be running, at 10 mile an hour or something crazy like that? Like, what am I trying to do with these key workout?
Yeah. And I don't know the exact science behind it, but I can say that, the speed workouts, intervals, are going to essentially build your aerobic capacity, VO2 max. They make things, um, they make something at a faster pace generally seem easier than they would be without it. It's, you know, yeah, all Mark needs to do is average 12.5-minute miles for 100 of them to get a 24-hour 100. I think that's what it is, something like that. Or even less, but like, if you can exert the same amount of effort and those are like 11-minute miles, then great, you went that much faster, and you have that much more of a buffer, for when things go wrong.
Totally agree. The idea or the science behind is that we're building VO2 max, we're building that cardiovascular system. We're trying to move oxygen more efficiently through the body. And at those higher heart rates, we're seeing that adaptation a little bit better. That's the main goal if we think of like the top goal of it. But none of these workouts have just one specific goal, right? The second goal would be that we're getting a better leg turnover, we're getting a higher cadence. Maybe we're running higher up on our feet and using the forefoot instead of just running slowly and heel striking and just kind of keeping one monotonous pace, right? So we're changing the gait by running a little bit quicker, and then our respiratory rates are increasing. We're getting better respiratory rates. We're bringing the heart rate down a little bit more in running the same paces. Instead of running at that 12.5-minute mile all the time at that same heart rate, we're able to maybe run, to Kevin's point, an 11-minute mile at or near the same heart rate. So those are the adaptations that we're looking for in the speed work. Plus, it's also a change of pace. I mean, in more than one sense, but it's also a change of pace, right? We're not monotonous. I think if I had to run, or if I was considering running a 12.5-minute mile from here until Moab 240 in October, that I'd be pretty bored of training by the time I got to that point as well. So I'm mixing it up. I'm trying to keep myself actively engaged by having different seasons and creating different structure to the training so that it's just not so much slogging away at 12.5-minute miles.
Yeah. No, that's cool. My understanding is like one of the key reasons you want a higher VO2 max, and yeah, interval workout is like that's how you increase it. That's also increasing your lactate threshold, and that's the lactate threshold is when you start having accumulation of degradation of sugar, and that will cause cramping and pain. So really, as if your threshold is higher, you can work at that intensity longer and not have accumulation, so not get fatigue. And like the easy comparison is a higher VO2 max. You have basically more lung capacity, I guess, or the opposite of that would be if you're running at altitude and you're pooped out very quickly, it's kind of the opposite of increasing your VO2 max. Is you're getting less oxygen and everything hurts. So it will affect even your lower kind of intensity workout. All right. Next question is from Adam, and Adam is asking you guys, what's the best way for what's the best way for a flatlander to train for eating at altitude?
I'll just jump in with kind of some anecdotal experience. I have done a lot of weird gut training. It's just been like kind of anecdotal, just testing things out on my own, honestly, and they seem to work pretty well. I mean, I may be gifted with like a good gut, just inherently, but I'll do weird things like eat a whole bag of potato chips, like, which is not like great fuel. It kind of produces a lot of gastric distress, and then go do a workout. My wife, Brian mentioned, was a dispatcher. She was recognized. She got a life-saving pin, and the family of the person who she talked through CPR provided a surf and turf dinner to the fire station and everybody. I gorged myself on lobster and steak and went running up Aspen Mountain. Granted, that's not flat, but we like a lot of times so like an ultra is not perfect, right? Like, there's everything's going wrong all the time. I mean, a lot of times it's not going wrong all the time, but your training runs, like we put them into this like kind of perfect box where it's like I'm well fueled, I'm well hydrated, I'm whatever, and you set yourself up for your workout, and then ultimately you get into a race, and all of a sudden maybe you're experiencing for the first time gastric distress and things like that. It builds anxiety kind of snowballs on itself, and ultimately that could be the genesis of your gut issues. I mean, it's not, and then add the altitude on top of it. For this flatlander right here, I'd say eat some crap and go do your workouts. This is just an anecdotal experience, and that seems to have worked for me. And I don't know if like Coop or anybody would be like, yeah, that's the ticket.
That's sound advice, Kevin.
But anecdotally, it works, yeah. And that's I would say he should try that.
So, Adam, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. I am gonna say that I think at first you start by separating the two. First, you do your training at flatland, trying to work on your altitude acclimatization, right? So you want to, like, if you're at flatland, you're going to run in the heat of the day. I know he's like on the East Coast, somewhere pretty hot. So heat acclimation is a substitute, a near substitute for altitude acclimation, right? So him in heat, running in the heat, running in the day. And then I think, Adam, you need to just work on the gut, work on eating on the run, just like Kevin's saying, and you're separating the two, right? Then you could start to mend the two as you start to figure those out, right? Then you could do the crossover. You could start eating on your long runs on those hot days, which you should be doing anyway. But I think that eating is a loose term in ultra world. In training, we think of someone squeezing a little goo packet in their mouth, but Kevin's talking about eating a 3-course, 4-course meal of some sort, steak and lobster or something. eating the calories that you're going to need to move on to the next aid station in these longer events that we're doing. So I think you start out by breaking them apart and then start to mesh them across each other. That's my best advice that I got for you.
Yeah, if I can chime in from someone who's living at sea level, because these two are living in Colorado. I mean, obviously, if you're not able to eat at nut altitude in an ultra, yeah, that's not going to happen. But it is tough, and I don't have a perfect solution. For me, altitude adaptation is what has helped the most, and I definitely see a huge difference, like huge difference. When I go and race Leadville, I try to go ahead of time to have 2-3 weeks. And yes, my body will adapt, but also my digestion. The first week that I'm there, we do small runs. I'm pooped out, and like the kind of physiological thing that is happening here is like you're not oxygenated enough, and your body is trying to divert the blood where you really need it. And right now you're running, so digesting is kind of like, that's a later problem. So as long as you're not adapted to altitude, you'll always struggle with eating. So unfortunately, moving to Colorado might be the easiest solution.
Yeah,
simple enough.
Come on up.
But yeah, not practical. Yeah.
On race day, also just logistic wise, don't forget to keep that slow trickle of calories basically from the gun. I think a lot of people get a lot of gastric distress, and maybe even chalk it up to altitude by getting behind on their eating.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've been guilty of that. Yeah.
But it's normal
So,
to
yeah,
struggle.
just
It's normal to struggle.
Yeah.
Like I've done 3,500 miler. I've puked only twice, and it's twice at Leadville. Like this is not a coincidence. It's definitely a thing, and it's not that I've done anything different about eating in these races. It's just the altitude totally messed me up, and the best you can do is adapt to it. I guess EPO could maybe help if you want to try that too.
I guess that
theoretically would help. I'm not recommending that, but yeah, it's rough. Like I see a huge difference.
To Simon's point, I would say maybe to wrap it up is it's thinking about maybe not in the training, but at the event at a Leadville, which we know is altitude, and I use that as the example. At the Leadville is to slow down the effort when you are consuming calories. So you get into the aid station, you get yourself 2 quesadillas and the Coke, right? You chug the Coke, you put the Coke cup in the trash can, and you're walking out and you're eating these 2 quesadillas. Know that your body's going to have to process that in the next 40, 50 minutes or better. So maybe not an 8 on the RPE scale, maybe bring it down to a 6 and let that process, or try to help that process along, as opposed to keep charging. Once you start to feel like the food's settled a little bit better, your GI may or may not have issues, then you could dial it back up and start moving again a little bit harder. But give it a little time. Maybe just turn the dial down a little bit to help that digestion process. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate your time. Thanks, Kevin, so much for the conversation and sharing all about 200s and your journey to sport and our little side story about how we met.
Hey, Brian, I appreciate it. And Simon, it's great to meet you. Great to speak with you. And I love what you guys are doing.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening, guys. We hope to have some more guests on real soon, and we'll catch up to you guys soon.
Yep. Bye.